Border Management Authority Commissioner Dr. Michael Masiapato says over 9,000 immigrants were intercepted, apprehended and deported as they were attempting to enter the country legally. Masiapato says well over 5,000 of those individuals were actually undocumented. Well, this emerged during the BMA's press conference in Pretoria early this morning, where Masiapato reported that over 300 vehicles were also intercepted from criminal syndicates by border guards and handed over to the South African Police Service for further processing since July of 2022.
Regarding conventional border law enforcement work as undertaken by the border guards, we want to report that in the quarter under review, a total of 9,954 persons were intercepted, apprehended and deported as they were attempting to enter the country illegally. Of these 9,954 persons, 5,826 did not have documents at all. 2,127 were inadmissible, mainly for many reasons, either because they carried a fraudulent visa, or probably they had a passport that did not meet the requirement, or they did not have a yellow fever certificate. And of course, 2,000 of those were considered undesirable, either because they previously overstayed in the country, or probably they did any other thing before that made them not to be admitted into the country. In this instance, the majority of the intercepted and deported individuals, as always the trend, had been Basotho-laden, followed by Zimbabweans as well as Mozambicans. Incrementally, since July of 2022, at the first point of deployment of the border guards, they have been able to stop about 496,622. That is what we call incremental figure. And of course, that is the total number as per the work from the point of inception. Further, in the same quarter, our border law enforcement team has also intercepted and handed over a total of 15 high-powered suspected stolen vehicles for further handling. In this particular instance, incrementally, once again, since July of 2022, we could count around 349 vehicles that were actually intercepted by the border guards, handed over to members of the South African Police Service for further processing. And of course, in this particular instance, we are indicating that this has been the work done by criminal syndicates with the intention of taking cars out of South Africa into the rest of the continent.
All right, for this discussion, let's now welcome Mr. Willem Els, who's the Senior Training Coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies, to also weigh in on the systems that have been unveiled today by the Border Management Authority. Willem, it's always great to have you with us on SA Today. So the report actually outlines some of the BMA efforts or current efforts to combat illicit goods as well as people entering the country. Let's start with the on-port agricultural specialized function as well as health specialists, and looking at the long list of non-compliant items that they had to either destroy or return to their country of origin. How do you think this is going to pan out, Willem?
Good afternoon to you, Alicia. Yes, I think that was a very good feedback from Dr. Masiapato. You normally think that they will focus especially on your security when it comes to especially the illegal immigrants, the people crossing the vehicles, etc., etc. But it was also refreshing to see how they are actually breaking up their strategy and looking at all the other issues that are also threatening our country, like our agriculture, our wildlife, etc. So we see that they are really wide stretching. They are trying to cover the whole spectrum of the threats that are actually threatening our South Africa from a more border management perspective. And it's refreshing to hear how successful they were in this quarter.
Let's speak of those threats, Willem. I mean, maybe let's expand on the transportation of those persons, the 6 persons to and from South Africa. I mean, I don't think we actually realize, well, the wider public in general, we don't realize the protocol as well as processes that are involved in this regard. I mean, the fact that they actually have to be placed under special surveillance or even refused entry, this is quite interesting to know.
Yeah, it is. International borders are a very complex area of course, it's got special legislation, but also it's got special measures, whether they are just reported, from across the border or from a neighboring country, or whether from a more distant country. There's a lot of protocols that need to be followed, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to do that. And it seems that since the establishment of the BMA, where all the different departments that had to deal with this were basically fragmentalized, and they were working silos, that it seems that this approach that's been followed with the establishment of the BMA actually assisted them to actually streamline and to facilitate these functions as well. So it is a very good step forward.
Willem, you and I have had extensive discussions about the urgent need, in fact, for updated border security features and port features. Finally, things are taking shape, but looking at the existential breaches and how criminals and syndicates have actually identified ways to circumvent these, how soon do you think they can actually yield these positive results? Because the issue still remains. We really have a high level of corruption, firstly, among the officials who will simply just take bribes, and the fact that we still don't have really effective border walls. I mean, these issues will continue. Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi had alluded to in his briefing to these port transgressions where drugs are seemingly moving freely in and out of the country as well.
Exactly, and that is one of the challenges that we have in South Africa with our security threat, where it comes to border management, is the porosity of our borders. And one of the reasons why it is so porous is not because we don't have all the resources. Of course, we are lacking it, but it is your human factor that is implemented there. And those state embedded actors, they got a lot of power, they got a lot of responsibility, etc., etc. And they are being relentlessly targeted by these international syndicates in order to compromise them, to facilitate their criminal activities across border. So what we also saw that it seems that in the strategy of Dr. Masiapato is to tackle corruption, because corruption is one of the main challenges there. And what we saw, they rolled out during this period also, they start to equip their operatives with body cameras. Mm-hmm. And that is a very positive step in the right direction, because now it minimizes the window of opportunity for these state embedded actors to be actually compromised, because when they are being targeted by these people, they have to have some time of freedom, they have to do something in the dark. But when they are being constantly monitored through these cameras, it actually protects these operators from these syndicates targeting them. So that's a step in the right direction. But we should always remember, when it comes to this type of crime and preventing this crime, and we're never going to completely stop it because of the nature of it. What we are doing now, and what we see that the Border Management Agency is doing, they are putting up hurdles. They're making it more difficult for these criminals and syndicates in order to operate freely.
But I mean, Willem, let's talk about the issue of, installing a secure border fence. There's never been any announcements or pronouncements about plans regarding this. And we know there's certain parts, specifically, there's an area around Swaziland where people just simply, there's even videos online, people just simply move between South Africa and the other countries. So when are we going to actually make available enough and proper effective resources to first build this wall, and then you can effect these systems that are people-based?
Yeah, see, there's been some efforts to do that. Especially, it was very open, and it was also widely reported with the previous minister of works. And it failed because it was an inferior type of offense. It was not really well planned and thought to, and that fence disappeared overnight. Well, it was stolen, and the people just continued to cross. But if we look back at the previous dispensation, if you look at pre-94, our borders there around Musina, especially with Zimbabwe, and then also down with Mozambique, it was extremely fortified by electric fencing, by a well-patrolled, well monitored, etc. But it cost us a lot of money. And unfortunately, due to poor governance, it was switched off, I think, right about 92, and then it became a free-for-all, because apart from everything that's been carried away and stolen, they created so many informal crossing points that are really facilitating this. You know, in a recent study we did from the Lebombo border post to the Swaziland border, we identified some 27 illegal crossing points that are being used on a daily basis by these criminal syndicates. That's apart from what is going on at the border post itself.
Absolutely. And I remember, of course, Dr. Masiapato, they even conceding that they couldn't even manage to station these army patrols alongside the whole border there, Willem. So thank you so much, as always, for that valuable input. Mr. Willem Els is a senior training coordinator at the Institute for Security Studies.